Hello YouTube and welcome to another video. It's been a really long time since my last one. I think my last one was back in August, so about 2.5 months ago since my last video. So I thought it would be a great time to make another one, and this is actually my third take of this video so far, which is quite agitating. The first one I kind of goofed up on, so I made a half-hour take just a little while ago with my handy-dandy 4-year-old video camera here. I just found out that it was making a buzzing sound on and off through pretty much the entire video, so I couldn't use that footage. So I'm now recording with my iPhone, so I apologize if frame rates are really low or if you can't hear me that well or anything, but that's really what I have to work with at this point. So, I'm going to warn you though, I'm going to keep my voice down a little bit for this video because I do live with other people. Unlike my last videos, I'm not at home anymore. I'm at college, living in an apartment. I'm a sophomore now at Champlain College, as you can see by the poster. Majoring in computer networking and cybersecurity, and I'm now a sophomore, like I just said. So yeah, last video I made, I was at home over the summer, you know, interning for a company called Travelers Insurance, but now, you know, my classes are eating up a lot of my time at school here, so I haven't really had a ton of time to just, you know, make YouTube videos and stuff. And I actually made a little bit of a list for myself here, if I can pull it up, for me to remember everything I need to mention. I'm probably going to forget a lot of stuff, but I'll do my best to try to, you know, mention everything there is. So yeah, so first up, I'll go ahead and I'll talk about my classes. So, I have 5 classes this semester usually, 2 of which are English classes, which are quite boring, but a little bit helpful, but mostly boring. And I also have usually 3 tech classes. And this semester I have a systems administration class, which is learning about Linux servers, Windows Server, like 2012, you know, basic systems administration stuff that an administrator would have to do. Next I have Introduction to Programming, which is pretty much just a C++ in Visual Studio. And then I have a Intro to Forensics class, which is pretty introductory level forensics stuff. And I'm sorry if anything I say in this video doesn't really make sense, or if I'm just kind of mumbling along, because I'm quite tired. I've only been up for, I don't know, 11.5 hours, but I spent a good 6 hours of time working on a systems admin assignment, where what I had to do was I had to write some Linux scripts that would automatically, without any user interaction, back up select portions of an operating system, including you know, a SQL database and all that, zip it up, and securely transmit the backup files to a remote backup server over a protocol more secure than FTP. So that ate up a bunch of my time today, trying to figure all that out. And usually what I do that stuff on is I use my virtual machines here with Oracle VirtualBox to do that sort of thing, such as this machine right here, that's running through the virtual terminal. I usually SSH into these things, of course, but not for this very moment in time. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. And as far as just general things go, you know, I'm living, take my phone off the charger, living in this apartment, doors right there. This isn't really super important for my videos. I know you can't really see anything, but doors over there. I have my 55-inch TV with me. I bought this desk and put my, not mine, but my brother and I's 2012 gaming PC here. I brought that desk from home as well. My roommate's stuff is on it, including my laptop. Our kitchen's in there. Housemate lives there, and my roommate and I live on the opposite side of this wall. So there's not a lot to show other than what is immediately in front of me right here. So yeah, this is a 2012 PC. Not much has changed hardware-wise since my last video. I think in my latest videos I was in the process of, you know, testing out Windows 10 unactivated on it, but since I fully activated it, I fully activated it, loaded all my software and everything out, transfer all my keys and all that good stuff, and it's running okay. Windows 10 is probably one of the glitchiest operating systems I've ever used, but I guess I can deal with it. It's been doing some weird things like power cycling during sleep. My theory on that was that it was trying to update but failing and just going in a loop. So yeah, I still got a GTX 780 SOI in this thing, and SSD and all that. So yeah, most noteworthy thing about it is my new monitor. This is a Asus ROG PG278Q monitor. It's a 27-inch 1440p 144Hz G-Sync monitor with a 1 millisecond GTG response time. Pretty much, it's a gaming monitor, because we originally bought this Acer monitor over here about 3.5 years ago when we built this computer. By we, I mean my brother and I, who does not live anywhere near me right now. And it's it's an okay monitor, 1080p, 27-inch, 60 hertz. But as soon as I bought this monitor here for about $650, as soon as I got it, I was just very impressed by how much of an improvement there really is using a 144 hertz monitor over a 60. Because if you look here, if I drag this window around, it looks kind of choppy. It probably looks okay to most of you because you're used to it. Maybe used to it, or since I'm recording on my low FPS iPhone, it probably doesn't look that choppy. But then if I drag this over here, you may notice it's way smoother. And that's actually very useful for playing video games, because you can track motion a lot better and all that, which is very nice. And the response time is very low, so you get good response time is there, with pixels actually changing very quickly. But I feel like I could have got a monitor 95% as good as this for half the price. So it did cost me $650. It did cost me $650. I think the main selling point on it is G-Sync, which I personally don't think really does anything. I think having it be 144 hertz is way more important than having G-Sync. It could just be because I get high FPSs most of the time and I don't really need G-Sync to sync my refresh rates, but whatever. I'll probably do a separate overview video on this monitor separately to go in detail about it, but not right now. So as for my Wi-Fi 10P, I've made some changes to it. Before, I think I had 24, either that or a 16 gigabyte M.2 SSD in it for file caching and all that. And I recently upgraded that to a 240 gigabyte SSD. And I've always had a 1 terabyte hard drive in there on the side. But of course, with the old SSD, the operating system was actually installed to the to the hard drive, and the SSD was just for caching. But what I did was I bought a 240 gig M.2 SSD for about $100, and I upgraded to Windows 10, put Windows 10 on the SSD, and then I'm using the 1 terabyte drive for secondary files. But what I also did, I was up at about 3 a.m. last night, just for no reason, and decided to load Ubuntu on it, because usually I just use my virtual machines and stuff for Ubuntu if I'm just trying to, learn something or figure something out. But I decided, it might be kind of cool to have Ubuntu on my computer. And usually I use Windows, so I decided what I'd do was I try to put Ubuntu on a second partition on my hard drive, which is really easy to do. I was going to put a bootloader on the USB, so that if the USB was plugged in, it would default booting into Ubuntu, and if the USB was not plugged in, it would boot to Windows. I was trying to do that last night, failed at that, but I mistakenly somehow actually found a better solution than that. The Grub bootloader, which loads Linux, installed to the SSD in the EFI partition table. I'm sorry, I'm having lots of trouble pronouncing things because I'm so tired, and just because I'm kind of that way anyway. But I went ahead and I used a program called EasyUEFI, and I removed the Ubuntu boot manager from the Windows boot manager, and it's now separate. So by default, my computer boots to the Windows boot manager and starts Windows up. But if I want to boot it into Ubuntu, I'll show you what I have to do. And this actually works very well. It's much more convenient than having to carry USB around with me. Because usually what happens is, I want to boot into Windows like 90% of the time, and I don't want to have to, select Windows out of the bootloader because it defaults to Ubuntu. So I have it set up so that I hit F12, I can select the Windows boot manager, which boots to Windows, or the Ubuntu Boot Manager, which is on the same drive, just separated out. So I select that, it starts up Grub, and Ubuntu loads up. And again, I have it on a 120 gig partition on my hard drive. And it's running pretty smoothly. I don't really use it for a whole lot. It's just kind of nice to have. It's kind of just an experiment. It takes a little while to actually do anything. But you know, that's kind of neat. I installed Steam, TeamViewer, Spotify, and the latest NVIDIA driver on it. A few of those things were a real pain in the butt to get working properly, but as soon as I configured them properly, it's actually quite nice to use. I even installed Half-Life 2 just for the hell of it, and tried playing that, and I was surprised to see that the performance is actually pretty good on Ubuntu for gaming, if you have the right drivers, of course. Like the video driver was a pain in the butt to install, and Steam was a pain to install because it was missing some 32-bit libraries that aren't on Ubuntu by default that it needs to run because it's an x86 program. So yeah, overall I'm pretty happy because I really like how Ubuntu, you know, it changes the menu color to match the background, which I think is kind of cool. It does that dynamically. It's also got spaces, or they call them workspaces, which Mac OS X has had for a while. I don't know how long Ubuntu's had them. Microsoft just put it in with Windows 10, which is implemented kind of poorly with Windows 10 because you have to click this button down here. I don't think there's any keyboard shortcut for it, so it makes it kind of useless if you want to make new desktops because it's not very fast. You have to click around with your mouse to actually do it, whereas in Ubuntu you can just do Control-Alt-Arrow is what I meant to say, and just switch between them, or you can do it with the mouse, of course. You know, it's got a bunch of little things like that. I really like it. Ubuntu seems to be quite stable when you get it to work. I notice that it, you know, goofs up a lot less often than Windows. So maybe I'll end up using this just, you know, from just browsing the internet or something. Because I don't know, I'm a nerd, I guess. I like doing that sort of thing. So that's that. Also, I got a new battery in this laptop. Before, you know, I had the standard Lenovo battery that doesn't stick out. But I bought a new one online a couple months ago. It sticks at the bottom here. That I think has about 50% more milliamp hours to it. That lasts about 3.5 hours versus the older one, which lasted about 2 or 2.5. And so that's pretty nice. It cost me about $30, I think, if I didn't already say that. So next up, I have my game servers to mention. Now for the past year and a half, I've been running some game servers off of some machines of mine, such as my Dell Precision 690 I made a video on a while back, but no one really joins them that much, and they haven't been doing a whole lot. But, you know, they're still up and running. I have a CSGO server, 1 or 2 Gmod servers, Rust server, TeamSpeak. I had TF2 running for a while, but I think I took it down because it was being problematic, and Minecraft. And how I'm running that is I'm running that on my Dell Precision 690, as well as a couple Linux servers. Now those Linux servers came from when I bought a couple desktops last year. Actually, I bought 6 desktops last year. I think I mentioned it in the video. I was going to try to resell them, because I was still in the kind of idea of reselling computer hardware for profit, which isn't really a thing you can do anymore, unfortunately, but I still thought that was a good idea, so I was going to do that. So I bought 6 desktop computers that didn't have Windows activation keys, which was kind of, you know, an act of shooting myself in the foot. And I couldn't really sell them because, you know, they have no Windows activation keys, and they're older machines. I got like AMD Athlon 2 X2s or Pentium dual cores and stuff, around 3 gigahertz a piece, and DDR2 800 megahertz memory and 80 gig SATA hard drives. So nobody really wanted to buy them, not surprisingly. I didn't know it at the time though. So I went ahead and I took a couple of them, and I put 3 gigs memory in one, 4 in the other. I loaded Xubuntu on each of them, and I am TeamViewered into one of them now. They each are running right next to my Dell Precision 690 in my business space at school. I'm not going to go there in this video, but I mentioned it before in my other videos. And this one right here is running a Minecraft server. I also have a script running to keep me connected to my VPN, which I'll mention in a second. And yeah, I mean, they're still up. I still have my gaming community called Tracer Core Gaming that nobody ever really joins or anything, but whatever. And maybe I'll have a website at some point, which I'll also mention in a moment. But this is leading into the next thing I want to talk about, which is the fact that I have some VPN servers running. Because when I'm running my servers on campus, well, I'm running them on campus because I don't have to pay for electricity. And just because I don't want to have a bunch of servers sitting right here with, you know, a bunch of noise coming from them and heat and everything. So I decided to put them on campus, but obviously I can't port forward the campus's internet. The way it's set up is that each client on my school's network has their own external IP, but there's still a firewall in front of it that you don't have control over. So I needed to VPN to somewhere to get my connection out. And what I was doing last year was I was using a service called Pure VPN, I think it was, which was kind of mediocre at best and also kind of expensive. So I stopped using that, and I bought a Raspberry Pi about a month ago. It's a Raspberry Pi 2, gig of memory, quad-core CPU, 900 megahertz, and I loaded, Raspbian, which is a Debian-based distro on that, which is default, and then loaded a PPTP VPN server called PPTPD on it, and I have all my game servers VPN'd through this to my internet connection here at the apartment. And my friend decided that it would be a good idea for him to have access to a VPN as well because he's living on campus and he wants to run some servers or something. So he gave me his Raspberry Pi B Plus here, which is the older model, along with a USB hub for, you know, powering the Raspberry Pis and a Ethernet switch I'm not using right now. I'll tape it together. I'm also running a PPTP server on that. And I think actually everyone's VPN to this one right now. I might be actually using this one, although it is turned on. Speaking of which, I should really unplug it. It's just wasting power. It's only water, too, probably, but it's wasting power. And the way this is actually working is that we have internet coming in over here. We have 200 megabit per second internet connection from Burlington Telecom. And unfortunately, the cabling in this house is only 100 megabits. Because this port in the wall here goes straight to the ISP through Ethernet. Well, at least it comes up through the port through Ethernet. It comes in through fiber, probably somewhere else. It comes in through Ethernet, and the external IPs aren't assigned yet until I hit a router, at which point, you know, the router gets the external IP. So essentially, we're paying for 200 megabit per second internet, and we're only getting 100 megabit because of the wiring, but I'm not too bothered about that because it's still plenty fast. But what's going on there is that I got the internet coming in to a gigabit switch I bought about a month ago. Okay, now with that switch, I have one of my routers. This is a router I bought last year for 20 or 25 bucks. And then I have my other router plugged into it as well. So I basically have two internet connections. The point in that is to allow me to have the two different VPN servers running because they're running on the same port, and for everything I need two different networks to port forward them, because you can't port forward one port to two different things on the same network unless they're load balanced properly or whatever. So I got my VPN server and my game servers as well running off this router, and all my personal devices like my desktop here and my laptop and my roommate's devices and everything running off of this router, which is also a little bit more secure. And this router is running the less used VPN server that it's actually going to turn off right now because nobody's ever going to use. Running off that. So, I guess I also mentioned that this router I got about a month or so ago for about 75 bucks. It's a TP-Link like my other one, except it's a few models up. Supports dual SSID broadcast, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. It's got gigabit Ethernet and a few other features I can't quite remember right now, like a FTP server and all that. You can load it into it. And it's pretty nice on paper, but unfortunately I got it, and it looks like the 2.4 gigahertz band is pretty crummy. I'll connect to it through my laptop because my laptop doesn't support 5 gigahertz, and unfortunately the connection is very poor. I'll ping the router straight from my laptop and it'll be super slow. I'll do the same thing for my roommate's computer and be slow too. So we occasionally, on any device that don't use 5 gigahertz, we end up using that router for some stuff occasionally, but yeah, that's that. So I'll probably end up sending that router back at some point. if I don't stay super lazy. Now another little project I've been working on that has relevance to my VPN service stuff is a website. And my website, if I go to it, I'm gonna go to Facebook. I just probably showed my fucking. Okay, never mind. Nothing really personal. Okay. I made this website about a year ago, and it's kind of lame. It's hosted by Dynadot. I bought the domain from them, and I use their website builder. It's a static website, no SQL integration or anything. You know, no databases, no PHP. It's all just static, boring, outdated information. And that expires in about a week. So as soon as that expires, I'm probably going to buy the same domain from a better hoster called, or registrar it's called HostGator. And I might use them for, you know, hosting my website as well as the domain for it. Although I might host it myself. If I host it myself, I'm going to use one of my little Linux boxes here. This one running a LAMP stack. I might use to run my website from. Now, while I was at work over the summer, I had some spare time on my hands because there were days where I didn't have much to do, right? So I learned a little bit of HTML and CSS and coded myself this website, which is like an updated version sort of my old one, except I coded it myself. Okay? And it didn't actually look like this a few weeks ago, or over the summer at work, because I did some work on it a couple weeks ago to update a little bit. I put, this link to this video in here, I put this down here and everything. But yeah, that was that. And about a week ago, I revisited it, and I rebuilt it to make it look more like this. But by the time I finished doing that, I decided that what I wanted something that was a bit more, it's a bit better. Because this site looks good, I think. I built it myself, coded it from scratch. I think it looks okay, but I cannot ever really imagine myself, that's not supposed to be there, but that's not the point. I cannot imagine myself ever doing my own hard-coded SQL integration and PHP and stuff. So I decided that through some persuasion by my friend to use a program called WordPress, which is installed on my TeamViewer machine here, or my server, I mean. So I installed that, integrated it with SQL and everything, which is part of the LAMP stack, of course. And I built myself a little website. Well, I actually didn't build it, it's default. I just reset it because I've just been toying around with it, and I just wanted to reset it. Which looks by default something like this. It's a very blog style sort of deal because that's what WordPress is. But I'm thinking I might try another website builder of some sort that's a little bit less blog centered. But I figure I'll just rebuild my website probably with WordPress and make it look like this, except a lot more dynamic and interesting looking. Except it'll also have a blog page on it that has all the posts and everything, which are stored in a SQL database. But if I don't do the hosting myself, I'll end up probably through HostGator, just buying their hosting or whatever. And they might have WordPress installed in their site or not. If they don't, I'll just somehow figure out how to export my own site and load it on their servers. So I might have a website up and running at some point, and I might even make a website and a subdomain of that for my gaming community, although I have a Steam page for that called, again, Tracer Core Gaming, if you want to check that out, which not a whole lot of people do, unfortunately. So I think I've mentioned pretty much everything I have, except for the fact that, I don't know, this isn't really a very interesting thing. Just I have these headphones here I bought about a month and a half ago. They're the Audio Technicas ATH0X7 AMP. The AMP standing for amp, because I have an amplifier in them, powered by a AAA, I think. And they're pretty nice little headphones. They cost about $100 or so. And they're very nice audio quality, but what I noticed about them is that they're not comfortable because they sit right on top of my ears. And I don't know if I have a big head or what, but it's kind of squashed my ears after a while. I don't know, I might make a overview video on it, but there's really not much to say, so I'll put a quick mention towards him. So anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have to mention in this video. I could have gone to my business space on campus and showed you my physical servers, but if anything, there's less in that place than there was when I last made a video in there. I have less hardware lying around, I have less interesting stuff to talk about in there. It's pretty much all in all. My classes are going along, I'm learning some good stuff, doing some own projects, including, my game servers, my VPN servers, and my website and all that. And I am going to upgrade my VPN servers pretty soon to OpenVPN, which uses which uses certificate authentication versus username and password, which is way more secure. But anyway, yeah, I think that's about it. I really don't have much more to say. Hopefully in the future, the near future that is, I'll make some videos like an overview on this monitor here. I should also make some how-to videos, because as I've mentioned in my other videos for the past couple of years, the old computer hardware stuff is kind of running out of profitability. I'm not getting old Dells and selling them on eBay anymore. Part of me kind of wants to, but I can't because I really have no means to grab that stuff anymore, and I don't really have the space for it or the time, unfortunately. So I'm shifting a lot more towards, just learning about cybersecurity, because I'm gonna end up doing that for a living probably, and making how-to style and product review videos for my YouTube channel here. That is if I keep actually making videos, which I think I will. So you can expect probably an overview video of this monitor pretty soon from me, as well as maybe some how-tos on, I don't know, maybe how to crack Wi-Fi. I can make a video about that. I actually did a take of it a few months ago, but never uploaded it. Maybe some videos on how to make a VPN server, or how to do this, how to do that. If any of you have ideas for anything like that, please do let me know. So that sums it up, I think. As always, thank you all for watching. I hope to see each and every one of you and more in my next videos.